On fire today. I went for a second, or actually third walk, um, and here I am again, recording another video, um, another message. But before I get into the message, I want to explain the process of how these messages come about into a video. Okay, so I'm walking along, and I see a bunch of pretty little flowers. And so, like always, I stopped to smell the flowers. And they were very powerful smelling. And so I went, oh, wow, very fragrant. And so I smelled them again. And then I smelled them one more time before I walked away from the bunch. Now, I'd never smelled those kinds of flowers before. They did not actually remind me of anything in particular. It was the actual strength of the fragrance that triggered a fragmented memory. Now, that fragmented memory didn't really land on anything. It just started a thought process. After that thought process was started, this is where I start to kind of get lost. I'll look around all over the place and just walk while my mind is turning. The wheels are going, every now and then they click. Oh, there's something there. What was that? And then I'll focus on that for a moment. And as I'm walking, I am taking in my surroundings very randomly. As the wind blows, and whatever catches my attention, I look at it. Because if it catches my attention, there's a reason. So as I'm walking along, pondering the fragrance and how that leads to a fragmented memory and how memory, blah, 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 okay? Something catches my attention, doesn't matter what it is, catches my attention. I look up and immediately I see a bird of prey. I know that birds of prey are symbolic and they all have a different symbolic meaning. So I pay attention. Color, size, and if I can tell, what type is it? Okay, this morning was a scavenger. Okay, and it was black with white underwings all the way out. Now, I have paid a lot of attention to the wings of the birds as they fly by. Sometimes they just have their white tips. Sometimes they have a line. It's not very often I see them with the entire wingspan underneath as white. So it's something that I noticed. This creates why did I notice this? What is significant about this particular thing that caught my attention? Because if it catches my attention, I will hyper focus on it. That's the way I am. That's how my thought process works. So as it caught my attention, I noticed I started to calculate. I started to grind. I started to let the mind go again, but in a new direction. And this direction had me thinking about soaring. Then it had me thinking about the fact that this bird is completely black on the outside, and when its wings are down and it's not soaring, you have absolutely no idea it has any white feathers at all. And this, again, leads to another thought process. And it relates a lot to a really good message. So, this is how I end up coming up with these messages. If it catches my attention and it creates a thought process, sometimes it's not a linear process, it's a spiral, or sometimes it's just like a tumbleweed on fire in the desert floating around in the wind. Sometimes I just catch the whole desert on fire and nothing comes of it, except for ash. Other times, it catches and then it flies. And when it flies, I can see from a different perspective. And then I share that perspective with you. So, here's my perspective. You know what they always say? You can't judge a book by its cover. I am going to tell you that isn't absolutely, you can't say that you're right. Yeah, it's totally true. You honestly can't, because especially now, like, the cover of a book can change so many times. So many times. I mean, most of my favorite classic literature, it's literally just a leather-bound book with a name. That's it. There's no, synopsis on the back, nothing. Just the name on the binding and the front. And you obviously can't judge that book. Sometimes, the title of the book can be misleading, right? You have no idea. So, same thing with this bird of prey. It was completely black, except for when it was soaring, its white feathers were underneath. Now, why is this so significant? Birds of prey, especially scavengers, are symbolic of death and rebirth. Not just death and rebirth, but of a dead carcass becoming the fulfilling protein for another animal. It's dead, it's rotting, it's got maggots in it, whatever. That bird absolutely loves it. It is the tastiest thing for it. It gives him the fuel and the fire to be able to fly beautifully and high. This is the hidden white in this bird. Instead of that carcass just going into the ground, which even with it just going into the ground, it's feeding everything in the ground, obviously. But it is now being used for an animal who can then continue to fly. It's symbolic of our own pain. It's symbolic of our own rebirth. It's symbolic of letting go and allowing that which is natural to happen naturally. When we try to fight against the flow, that's when the flow is no longer flowing. And I had this conversation with my children recently. If you consider yourself as floating through life on an inner tube, like I do, that's how I like to envision my journey through life. Okay, I am floating down the river. I absolutely love floating on an inner tube on a river. I don't have to paddle. I just allow myself to go with the flow, right? So when I'm allowing myself to go with the flow, I'm flowing beautifully. It is only when I am distracted and not paying any attention to the actual moment that I start to hit, rock bottom. My butt starts to bounce on the pebbles and I'm like, ow, that hurts. But then, I remember, oh yeah, I should pay attention. Lift up my butt a little bit and I'll be able to flow along a lot better, right? Because I'm on a floaty. This is so funny for me. Oh my goodness. So when we're paying attention to where we are in the moment, we're not, blind to what's coming out of us. We're aware. We don't really spend much time looking backward, because if you look backward, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this when driving. This is something my father taught me when I was learning how to drive. Where your eyes go, your car goes. Same thing with your little floaty. If you go like this, you can't see what's going on right in front of you. And then your butt starts going, and you're like, ow, ow, ow. Right? Or you end up in the weeds and you gotta push yourself away. Maybe try and find a stick, push yourself away from the bank. This is so fun. Okay, so and so as we surrender to the natural order of things, we can see just how, like, I don't want to say predictable, but kind of predictable the flow is. Oh, yeah. And once we stop riding the cycle, we become the center of the wheel, no longer round and round and round and round, but observing from the center as it revolves around us. That's your 13th zodiac. The one that's in the center, that holds it all together, that says, oh, okay, now I understand. I don't remember the name of the song. I don't even. All I'm hearing is, and the seasons turn, turn, turn. It's an older song. I don't really know it that well, but that was. Everything changes, everything changes. So that's, oh yeah. Very, very important message on that one, by the way. Resistance to change. Oh, this one's my favorite. Resistance to change. Okay, I absolutely love discussing this because I am, well, I'm 40. So I'm from the generation that's in between the no computer and only computer, right? I'm in that generation where I had a childhood outside without a lot of electronics. And then my teenage years came, and then boom, there was electronics. And then so, I saw the change. And so I spent a lot of time in my career when I was in the military trying to help the ones that were resistant to change anytime things changed. Because I had never had a problem with that. My life has never been the same for a long period of time. And so adjustment disorder isn't a problem I have. Unless you want to consider it in the opposite direction and I have a problem with adjusting to not changing. I don't know. Anyway, so change change is a way of life. And if you sit there and you try so hard not to change, you're like standing in a raging current, forcing yourself to stand against the flow. You're going to wear yourself out. Just relax. Change is normal. Change is natural. Change is necessary. And it's really not that scary. The greatest thing about change is the unknown part. That's the adventure. Yay, adventure time. Typical Sagittarius. Where's that horizon? I see it. Let's go. So change is everything. And the more you try to fight it, the more it's going to push against you. Because it's time. It's time for change. And I'm sorry about your luck, but the tides have turned and the force of the raging river will only get stronger. And that which is holding you back will only get heavier. People talk about like Judgment Day. But do you realize that Judgment Day is like every single day, every single moment? Where are you in this moment? Can you honestly say, Yeshua said, you come into this world, you are supposed to get your shoes dirty, but you are supposed to keep your garments pure. Can you wear white? I had a conversation with a friend of mine. She actually had a dream very related to this recently. Um, she was talking about how she dreamt that she was at the park and it had flooded, and then everything there was like nothing but slick mud, and there were people like trying to walk in it, and they were like all falling and sliding around, and now they're all covered in mud, and she's standing there at the very edge of this, and she's like, if I go that way, I'm gonna fall, and I'm probably gonna hurt myself, and I'm gonna get dirty. So I'm just gonna stay right here on this path, and I'm gonna go that way. And on this side, it's beauty. Beauty. This side, mud. I'm gonna stay on this path. And I'm like, congratulations. Wonderful. This is the lesson. We know what it is. I saw recently that there was a shift in like tolerance, if you will. And I don't want to say tolerance in the way like a social thing, but I mean like tolerance as in like, we're not gonna take this. No, we're not gonna take this. 'Cause we're not gonna take this anymore. Those of us who never spoke before, or those of us who tried to speak before but were not understood, we're starting to hear each other. And the more we can hear each other, the more we can clearly see that change is a natural thing. And it is something that we don't have to be afraid of. And I honestly never understood why the theory of evolution was considered to be so scary. What's wrong with thinking that, maybe our daytime doesn't match up with God's daytime? Maybe it happened over billions of years, which just so happened to be one day for God. That was the theory I had when I was a child. That and that it was an experiment. Maybe this way will work. Let's see. Anywho, okay, so I'm going to stop being silly now and go back to enjoying my day. More than likely, back outside. Bye, guys.